The teacher's voice cut sharply through the classroom. Just a Marine. Emily was 8 years old. Her hands trembled as she stood holding her project. "My dad works with a canine," she said softly. The red pen moved before she could finish. "Stories like that don't come from families like yours." The paper was marked. The room fell silent. 20 children watched as Emily's truth was quietly dismissed. She lowered her head, holding back tears, whispering a small prayer, not for anger or revenge, but simply for the truth to be seen. What no one knew was that help was already on its way. Walking steadily in combat boots beside a silent canine, a cool, Pacific breeze drifted through the schoolyard as morning fog clung to the sidewalks around Redwood Creek Middle School. The quiet suburban campus was just beginning to wake. Emily Carter arrived early, as she often did, clutching her presentation folder tightly against her chest, as if it might slip away if she loosened her grip. She was small for her age, narrow-shouldered, with pale skin that flushed easily and freckles scattered across her nose that darkened when she was nervous. Her light brown hair, usually neatly brushed by her mother, had already begun slipping free from its ponytail, damp strands sticking to her cheeks in the coastal air. She walked carefully, eyes down, sneakers scuffing the concrete as she silently rehearsed her words again and again. "My hero is my dad," she whispered. She had practiced everywhere at the kitchen table, on her bed, even quietly into the bathroom mirror. The words were simple. Saying them out loud took courage she wasn't sure she had. Emily was not a child who liked attention. She was observant and quiet, the kind who listened more than she spoke. Over the past year, that quietness had deepened, shaped by long evenings waiting for phone calls that came late, or not at all. Loving someone in uniform meant learning early that absence could become a constant companion. Her father, Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter, was the center of her story. Daniel wasn't tall, but he carried himself with unmistakable Marine disciplines, trait-backed, precise, controlled. His face was angular and weathered, his jaw square, his dark hair cropped short and already graying at the temples. His eyes rarely smiled fully, even when his mouth did. Sun-worn skin and faint scars told a story of long days outdoors and years of service. To strangers, Daniel seemed reserved, even distant. To Emily, he was gentle in quiet ways, patient when helping with homework over video calls, soft-spoken while reading bedtime stories through a screen, always listening, as if nothing she said was unimportant. He hadn't always been so serious. Emily's mother said the change came after a training accident overseas, officially recorded. Nothing dramatic enough for medals, but enough to leave him more watchful, more careful. Emily didn't know the details. She only knew that when her father looked at her. The tension in his shoulders eased, and when he made a promise, he kept it. Inside her folder were drawings she had made herself her father in camouflage. A small American flag in the corner, and beside him, a large, dark shape with pointed ears. Rex was a Belgian Malinois, 4 years old, lean and powerful, with deep amber eyes and a thin scar above one ear from training long before Emily met him. In photos, he always sat close to Daniel's leg, alert but calm. Her father told her Rex was brave and loyal, but more than that, he trusted him completely. To Emily, that was the highest praise of all. Emily reached her classroom early and took her seat by the window. The room smelled faintly of dry erase markers and cleaning solution. Bright posters about kindness and teamwork lined the walls. She placed her folder carefully on her desk, smoothing its edges in small, precise motions to calm the nervous flutter in her chest. Ms. Laura Bennett entered moments later. Ms. Bennett was in her early 40s. With straight blonde hair cut neatly at her jaw and makeup that always looked deliberate, she dressed in pressed slacks and cardigans, carrying herself with the confidence of someone who believed she understood children well. She valued structure, accuracy, and academic standards. To parents and colleagues, she appeared professional and fair. To students, her approval felt conditional. Her eyes lingered on Emily's folder as she moved around the room. Emily glanced up and offered a small, hopeful smile. None was returned. When it was time to present, Emily stood with shaking hands and walked to the front of the class. The room felt larger than usual. Faces blurred together as she spoke softly about her father, his work, his training, how he worked with Rex to keep people safe. Ms. Bennett interrupted. "And where did you learn all this, Emily?" "My dad told me," Emily replied, gripping the folder tighter. "Ms." Bennett glanced at the drawing of Rex. "That's quite a lot for a Marine. Are you sure you're not confusing this with something from television?" "No, ma'am." There was no raised voice. "No accusations, doubt." Ms. Bennett flipped through the folder, then picked up her red pen and wrote 2 words across the top of the page. "Not verified." She placed the folder aside, separate from the others, and gestured for Emily to return to her seat. Emily sat down slowly, hands folded in her lap, staring at the desk. Something fragile inside her cracked quietly at recess. Emily sat alone while the folder remained on the teacher's desk. For the first time, she wondered if telling the truth could sometimes be a mistake. That evening, her mother noticed immediately. Sarah Carter read the red ink, then looked at her daughter's too still face. "She didn't believe me," Emily said. Sarah said nothing at first. Later that night, she stared at Daniel's name on her phone, but didn't call. Not yet. The next morning, Ms. Bennett called Emily to the front again. This time, she placed the folder into the scrap bin beneath her desk. "Emily, I'd like you to apologize to the class." "For what?" Emily whispered. "For sharing information that hasn't been confirmed." The room was silent. Emily's shoulders curled inward. "I'm sorry," she said, the words heavy and wrong. That night, Sarah did call Daniel. "She threw it away," Sarah said. There was a long pause. "I'll handle it," Daniel replied. "I'm coming home." The next morning, Daniel Carter arrived at the school just after the bell rang. He walked with steady purpose, his fatigue heavy but controlled. At his side was Rex Alert, disciplined, calm. Together they moved through the hallway, quieting conversations as they passed. Daniel signed in without fuss. Authority, he knew, didn't need volume. When he reached classroom 3B, he knocked firm, respectful. "Ms." Bennett opened the door and froze. Daniel removed his cover. Rex sat smoothly at his side, eyes forward, unmoved. And in that moment, truth finally stood where it belonged. The contrast was unmistakable. The dog's disciplined stillness and the man's calm composure filled the doorway with a quiet gravity, one that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with control. "Yes?" Miss Bennett asked, her tone measured, though caution had crept in. "My name is Daniel Carter," he said evenly. His voice was low, steady, and carried without effort. "I'm Emily Carter's father." The classroom went completely silent. Emily sat frozen at her desk, small hands clenched tightly in her lap. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. She stared at the floor, afraid to look up, afraid the moment would break if she did. Miss Bennett glanced briefly at Emily, then back at Daniel. "This is instructional time," she said. "If there's a concern, you'll need to schedule a meeting." Daniel nodded once. "I understand. I won't take long." He stepped inside. Rex followed and sat immediately at his side, perfectly aligned. His presence seemed to settle the room into a tense stillness. A few students leaned forward, curiosity overpowering any unease. Daniel's eyes moved slowly around the room, not judging, simply assessing a habit he had never lost. When his gaze reached Emily, it softened slightly. Just enough. Asterisk. "I'm not a senior officer," Daniel said calmly. "I'm not here to impress anyone. I'm a Marine. That's all." Miss Bennett straightened. "And I'm not sure why my daughter came home yesterday." Daniel continued evenly and told her mother she was asked to apologize for telling the truth. A faint flush rose along Miss Bennett's neck. "I asked her to clarify information that couldn't be verified." Daniel nodded. "I understand accuracy," he said. "I also understand context." He gestured lightly toward Rex, who did not move. "This dog has been my partner for 3 years. He's trained in detection and search. He's assigned to my unit." Emily didn't imagine him. Miss Bennett opened her mouth, then closed it. Children sometimes misunderstand what their parents do. And it's your responsibility to question, Daniel said quietly, not to humiliate. The word landed softly, but with force. Emily caught her breath. She looked up for just a second and met her father's eyes. He didn't smile or reassure her with a gesture. He simply looked back at her steady and certain. You are not wrong. You are not alone. Daniel shifted slightly so he no longer blocked the doorway. I don't carry medals into classrooms, he said. I don't need to. But my daughter does not lie. Silence held the room. I'm asking, he continued, that her work be treated with the same respect as any other students. Before Miss Bennett could respond, the classroom door opened again. Mark Holloway, the assistant principal, stepped inside. He was a tall man in his early 50s, hair thinning, blazers slightly oversized, his expression permanently cautious. He prided himself on smoothing conflicts rather than confronting them. Is there a problem? He asked, glancing briefly at Rex. No, Daniel replied calmly. A misunderstanding. Holloway nodded quickly. Why don't we step outside? Daniel agreed. Rex rose smoothly and followed him. As the door closed, the class released a collective breath. Emily sat very still. She didn't know what would happen next, only that something irreversible had begun. In the hallway, Holloway cleared his throat. We appreciate parental involvement, Mr. Carter, but I respect procedures, Daniel replied. I also respect my daughter. Holloway glanced at Rex. We don't usually allow animals on campus, he certified, Daniel said. And he'll leave when I do. After a pause, Holloway nodded. Let's set up a meeting. Daniel agreed, already knowing this was only the beginning. That evening, Sarah listened quietly as Daniel explained everything. You didn't raise your voice, she said. No. You didn't threaten. No, she exhaled. Good. Emily listened nearby, feeling something settle inside. Her not relief, but steadiness. Later that night, Daniel sat beside her bed while Rex lay curled nearby. Did I do something wrong? Emily asked. No, Daniel said firmly. Especially not then. She held on to those words like a lifeline. The meeting the next day was calm and precise. Papers were laid neatly on the table. Daniel presented his orders, a letter from his commanding officer and Rex's certification. No dramatics, just facts. I'm not asking for special treatment, Daniel said. Only fairness. The document spoke clearly. I made an assumption, Miss Bennett admitted at last. I believed I was protecting standards, but I caused harm. Sarah spoke calmly. My daughter told the truth, and she was punished for it. Holloway cleared his throat. We will correct the record, and we will review what happened. When the meeting ended, nothing dramatic followed, but something had changed. Back in the classroom, Miss Bennett addressed the students. I handled this poorly, she said. I questioned a student's honesty without evidence. That was wrong. Then she turned to Emily. You may finish your presentation, if you'd like. Emily hesitated, then stood. Rex lay quietly nearby, his calm presence anchoring her. My hero is my dad, Emily said, her voice soft but steady. He's a Marine. He works with Rex. They help people. No one interrupted. When she finished, there was no applause, only listening. Change didn't arrive loudly afterward. It came through emails, policy updates, quiet meetings. Miss Bennett was placed on administrative leave. New procedures were introduced to prevent public questioning and humiliation. Assumptions were no longer allowed to replace evidence. Emily returned to school lighter somehow. Still quiet, but no longer afraid. She had learned that adults could be wrong, but also that wrongs could be corrected. Not with shouting, not with power, but with truth and the courage to stand still. On Daniel's last morning before returning to base, he walked Emily to school. He wore civilian clothes, but his presence was unchanged. Rex walked beside him, steady and alert. You did good, Daniel said. I didn't do anything, Emily replied. Daniel smiled. Exactly. As they walked away, the school returned to its routines. But something remained etched into its walls. Not the spectacle of authority, but the quiet lesson that honor lives in restraint, listening, and the courage to correct course. Sometimes miracles don't arrive with thunder. Sometimes they arrive quietly through truth spoken calmly. Hearts soften gently, and the right people appearing at the right moment. And sometimes that is more than enough.